Now in today's Mishna Brura, we're on chapter 89, number 5. And if he began to eat before dawn, tzarich lehafsik, he needs to stop eating. So not only are you not allowed to eat before davening, but even if you started eating before davening, you need to stop. Some say that he does not need to stop, and we'll see how the Mishnah Brura rules on that. Number 6, afilu lilmod asur mishigia zman tefillah. Even to learn is forbidden once it arrives the time of prayer. V'hainu, and this is mishe ragil hitpalel bebeit midrasho, one who is accustomed to praying in his Beit Midrash, and is not accustomed to going to the shul. De'ika, there is, Aramaic, lemechash, to worry, also Aramaic, dilma, perhaps, third Aramaic word, ika lemechash dilma, we should worry, there is to worry, perhaps, matrid, he will be, literally means bothered, but here it means caught up, begirsa, in the text. And it will pass the time of Shema and davening. But one who is accustomed to go to shul, mutar, it is permitted, because he's not going to get caught up. He knows that he has the deadline, the time that he has to be at shul. And if he teaches others, even if he is not accustomed to go to the shul, mutar, it is permissible, kaivan, since shehasha overet, the time passes, dizchut harabim davar gadohu, because the merit of the many is a great matter. Ve'im lo yilmadu achshav, and if they will not learn now, yitbatlu, they will be idle. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will be idle, be negated. They won't have this opportunity. And they will not be able to learn. Number 7, mutar lehistaper. It is permissible to have a haircut. Velikanes lemerchatz, and to enter into the bathhouse. Samuch leshacharit, close. Samuch means close. Close to shacharit. Shelo gazru, they did not decree ela samuch lemincha, except for close to mincha, shehu davar hamatzui, which is a matter that is literally found. It means common. In other words, we'll see this explained in the Mishnah Brura, but there is a decree made that once it's time for mincha, you have to go to mincha. You can't go for a haircut to go for a bathhouse. So you may think the same thing applies. Close to shachrit, once it's almost time, not actually time yet for shachrit, once it's almost time for shachrit, you're not allowed to go to the bathhouse. That's not true. You actually are. Alright, now let's see the Mishnah Brura in this. So the first one is hitchilechol. Somebody began to eat early. So about this, the Mishnah Brura says, afilu even haya beheter. It was in a permitted way. This is it was more than half an hour before the dawn. Within that half hour, it is forbidden to begin eating. As the Ramah wrote in chapter 652, regarding the lulav. Vuadin, same law. Legabe kriyat shma, regarding shma, deoraita, which is from the Torah. V'davke, and davke imhu ochel. Yeah, so that's saying if you started eating at a permissible time, but now it's half an hour before, so you must stop eating and go to shul. V'davke, and particularly imhu ochel yoter mikabeitz, if he's eating more than the amount of an egg. Dahave derek keva, which would be in a fixed set way. In other words, we're talking here about a proper meal. That's where it becomes problematic. Or lishtot bekashir, or to drink with this amount. Aval b'pachod mizeh, less than this mutar, it's permitted adalot hashachar, until dawn. So you can have a snack, but a meal must be stopped. And when he's speaking about a bait, I think he's talking about actual bread. In other words, if it's not bread, then I don't think that rule would apply. You need to stop when dawn breaks. Even though for the prayer of mincha, you don't need to stop. As we will see in chapter 332, here, shiny, different. Here it is different. Kevan, since the asmechuha, they supported it, akra, on a pasuk. In other words, it's not just, well, we worry that you might get caught up and carry on eating, but there's actually a verse over here that prohibits us from saying that we should have breakfast before davening. Or the verse of don't eat over the blood. Don't eat before you prayed for your lives, as we saw yesterday. Therefore you would need to stop. In the name of the Zohar, Katva Achronim, the later authorities, wrote, even if he got up in the middle of the night, it is forbidden to eat, to taste, before he will daven. And the Pri Megadim wrote, even if he, that's dafka when he was sleeping. It is possible that drinking is permissible. Umidina, and from the law, in other words, according to the actual letter of the law, afilu yashain, even if he slept, mutar le'echol v'lishtot, he is permitted to eat and drink. Umikom makom, nevertheless, nachon, it is correct, lechadchila, in the first place, ideally, lizaher, to be careful, bazeh im eino mukhrach, if it is not necessary. In other words, if you're really, really hungry or whatever, so then that's absolutely fine. But if it's not really necessary, so it's a good thing. It's correct not to eat before davening. Va'ayin b'machzir shekel. Take a look at the machzir shekel. Shekatav who wrote, Devetshuvat Shav Yaakov Siman Chet. Quote the reference. Katav b'shem Sidur Arizal. She'arav Rav Chaim Vital Atzmo K'shei Chalesh Libo. Rav Chaim Vital, the greatest student of the Arizal himself, when his heart was weak. In other words, when he felt faint, achal, or his blood, we would say probably his sugar level was low, blood sugar level was low. Achal or shata ezedavar lachazek gufo. He ate or drank something to strengthen his body. V'lo asar ki im lechol limlot ta'avato. And it is not forbidden to eat except to full limlot, to full ta'avato, his desire. Ayin Sham, take a look there. V'chaya Adam, Gam Kain, and the Chaya Adam also, de hakam kodem or hayom, one who gets up before the light of day, v'libo chalash, and is feeling faint, v'al yadei zeh mevatel mitbatel milimudo, and through this he would be idle from his learning, mutar lechol, he would be allowed to eat. Then he says, v'yesh omrim she'enot tzarich lahafsik, some say he does not need to stop eating. This means litfilah, for prayer. You can carry on davening, he doesn't need to stop eating for prayer. Afilu hitchil bisur, even if he began when he shouldn't have in prohibition, ele likrat kriyat shema bilvad. He just needs to say prayer. He just needs to say Shema. So the second opinion that actually, okay, listen, you started eating when it's time for prayer. That was not the right thing of you to do. But now you're continuing to eat. That's actually all right. In other words, it was an ideal law that they said, don't start eating. Okay, you started eating. So finish your meal and then go daven. But the Shema, you would need to stop. Why? Shehi min ha-Torah. That is from the Torah. Tzarich lahafsik im hitchil b'isur. You need to stop to say the Shema if you began in prohibition. V'koreh kriyat Shema belo birchoteh. You will say the Shema without its brachot. Shebirchoteh he midivrei sofrim. Because the brachot are literally from the words of the scribes. That's a phrase used to mean of rabbinic origin. And after he will finish, Yikra hakriyat Shema im birchoteh, he will say the Shema with the brachot, v'yitpalel, and pray. V'katvu ha'achronim, and the later authorities wrote, She'ikar kasvara rishona, that the main thing is like the first opinion. In other words, this opinion that says that you stop eating when it comes time for davening, even if you we're allowed to start eating, but now there's time for davening. You stop eating, that is the main one. Kasfara, the logic or the position of the first one. V'im berach birkat hamazon, and if he said birkat hamazon, v'osek b'shtia, and he's engaged in drinking, tzarich lahafsik ledivrei hakol. He needs to stop according to everybody. He's finished his meal, now he's just sitting and having coke. No, now you must stop and daven. Lil mod asur. Some say even to learn is forbidden when he doesn't have a set commitment to go to the minyan, because he might get caught up in his learning. Rutzalamai, this means lehatchil lilmod, to begin learning. Aval kfar hitchil, but if you already began, afilu achar shegiazman, even after the time came, shuv eino posek, he no longer needs to stop. Im yesha'er lo shahut achar kach, if there will remain to him time afterwards, litpalel bizman tfilah, to pray in the time of prayer. Kriyat Shema, however, when it comes to the Shema, yesh omrim that tzarich lahafsik v'likrota. Some say that you need to stop and to say it. Since you started after the time had already arrived. And there are those who are lenient also in this. Unless you are afraid that the time will pass. So if you're afraid the time will pass, everyone agrees that you have to stop and say the Shema. But and if you're already learning, so you can then you can certainly carry on, provided that there will be time to learn. We're speaking about, as it says, to daven, but we're speaking about you want to start learning when it's time to daven. So then definitely, if there's not going to be time for Shema, you need to stop. But if there will be time, so some say you can go right ahead, and others say you should rather make sure that you daven first. Misha yagia, when the time comes. This is saying over here. As you're not allowed to learn when the time comes for once the time comes for davening. So he says, Hainu, that means Misha Amud Shachar, when dawn is broken. Aval Kodem Lazeh, but before dawn, Mutar Afilu Latchil, is permissible even to start learning. And when he started, Mimela, automatically, Shuv, subsequently, Eino Posek. He doesn't stop. So if you started learning when you're allowed to, so certainly you can carry on. Imloshi Yaresh Avarazman, again, unless he is afraid that the time will pass. And there are those who are lenient in the first instance, even after dawn is broken. The whole time that the time hasn't arrived close to nates, which is appropriate to begin to pray at it in the first instance. In other words, we've been saying, well, once the time comes time for dawn, you should really stop everything else and kind of get ready for davening. But the truth is, the real time for davening is nates. So maybe you should carry on, and only when it comes close to nates, you should make sure that you're going to be davening the Amidah then. Baved Midrash, in his Beit Midrash that we normally daven, this means beyichidut, privately, without a minyan. And if the community, the congregation, are accustomed to gather to him there, it's permissible in this also. Certainly they will remind him when they come. Once they all come, then they're going to remind him and it's fine. Okay. Matrid begirsa, because we're worried he will get caught up in the text. Look at the Chayadam who wrote. Even if he has a fixed shiur, what he learns. In other words, a fixed amount of time. Shiur is quite a variable word, a measure, a sheer amount of time. There's a fixed amount of time that he learns. I sit in a Gemara for an hour. The leka, there is not, that's an Aramaic word. Lemeichash, again, to worry. There's no need to worry. Kol kach, so much. Shema yimashech belimudo, perhaps he will draw out his learning. Afilu hachi asur, nevertheless it's forbidden. V'lechein, and therefore, mi shehu b'derech odara b'yishuv, somebody who's on the road or lives in a town. Afilu b'kites, even in summer. Afal gav, even though she mitzvah litpalel b'shasha tzivur mitpalelin, it is a mitzvah to pray at the time that the community are praying. Mikol makom, nevertheless, kevin she'asur lilmod kodem shemitpalel, since it is forbidden to learn before you pray, mutav shitpalel techef, it is better that you pray immediately, kedei she'lo yitbatel milimudon, in order that you don't negate your learning. In other words, you want to learn, you want to daven, you've got from this time to that time, so you have to daven first. So you should rather daven first and then learn afterwards, rather than waiting for the time that the community would be davening, that then you're not going to be able to learn before that because you haven't yet davened, and you're going to end up being idle from your learning. Uvizman hazeh, in our days, the ovrei drachim al pi rov einam lomdim Torah b'derech, that those who travel on the way, generally speaking, al pi rov, the majority, are not learning Torah on the way. Vayam harawi, would have been appropriate, sheyamtinu al zman shetzuim mipalelim, they should wait until the time that the community are davening. So just to clarify the idea here, even if you're not davening with a minyan, you should try to daven at the same time as the minyan. So I'm going to be at the airport at the time the community is davening, but I should try to pace myself together with them. So I'm virtually part of the community. Mikol makom, nevertheless, since it comes from this that they would transgress the time, or they pass the time of Shema, and sometimes even the time of davening, lachain, therefore, Yezaharu, they should be careful, shetechef, immediately, bekumam kodem she'asku b'shum davar, when they get up, before they engage in any matter, yitpalelu, they should daven. So that's his advice. Daven first thing, even on the road, don't wait for other things. Umi kol shekain, how much more so? How much more so? In big communities, they pray immediately when the day becomes light. If so, you're always davening at the time that a community is davening. That's what he said. And it seems to cut down on the time that you're saying the blessing on the tefillin, that the tefillin should be at the time you're able to see your friend. In other words, yes, you're davening first thing in the morning, but you still should be putting in your tefillin once it's light enough to recognize somebody. As we've written above. So the concern here is that we're worried he's going to get caught up in his text and he's going to miss the time for Shema and everything. So he says, Im amar lachaver she'enu lomed, if he says to his friend who's not learning, she'im yitared begirsa yazkireu shelo yavar zman, that if I get caught up in my learning, remind him that the time shouldn't pass, mutar li'umod, then it's going to be fine. You've got your contingency. Melamed lacharim, teach other people. V'davke im lo ya'avor zman kriyat shema, only if the time for Shema will not pass. Al yedei zeh, through this. De'im yarei she'avor hazman, if you are afraid that the time will pass, Muchuyav likrota, you are obligated to say Shema mikodem, earlier. Keivan shekfar higia hazman, since the time has already arrived. Ukamoshe ochachti lekamen, as I proved later on, and he gives the reference. Listaper, to go in and have a haircut. Davka samuch l'shachrit, particularly close to shachrit, dahainu, which means kodem she'alamud hashachar, before dawn has come. Aval mishe alamud hashachar, but once it is already dawn, gamze asur, you're forbidden to have a haircut even in the morning. V'katav Pri Megadim, the Pri Megadim wrote, the din uvur saki usauda, that coming to a court case or going to the tan or having a meal, asur samuch l'shacharit k'mo samuch l'mincha, is forbidden actually close to shacharit, just like it is close to mincha. V'ayin le'el, siman aleph ber halacha, take a look earlier, chapter 70. V'liknot tzarchei suda be'erev Shabbat, to buy the needs for the meal on Erev Shabbat, kodem tefillah, before davening, shari, that is permitted, decheftzei shamayim heima, that is the desires of heaven. That's what Hashem wants. Then you're not engaging in your own things, you're engaging in heaven's work by getting food for Shabbos. However, b'chol, during the week, asor, it would be forbidden. Shehu davar, this is something, sherov ha'am nichnasim sham bayom, the majority of the people enter there during the day, go for a haircut or whatever during the day. Aval kashachar, aval b'shachar, in the morning, davar she'enu matzui, that's very unusual. V'lo gazru b'zeh, and therefore they never made a decree in such a case. V'otan hamelachot, and those labors, Shederech b'nei adam lashkim lehem kodem alot hashachar. It's the way of people to get up to do them early before shacharit. Yesh machmirin. There are those who are strict, v'sovrin, and hold the position. In that half hour, close to dawn, it's forbidden, like close to mincha. And he gives the reference earlier. Therefore, it is good that you should say the brachot beforehand, and then you're covered.